Okay, Cord TST meeting. Um, we have a pretty full agenda. We've got a couple of demos, which I think we'll start with, and then there is an issue of Shrikant raised. I guess, came up at yesterday's Scrum meeting about whether or what the process is for deciding to release bug fixes to 2.0, and then we have three collaborator proposals. Is there anything else? All right, we're going to save the collaborator proposals for last because David, I guess, is running a little bit late. But I don't think we'll spend too much time on the demos. We got two of them. I'm going to start off with one, and I'm not a great demoer of this software yet, so it'll be pretty quick. But I wanted to make everyone aware of it, and then I think Sopan has something to show about diagnostics. Okay, so this is something that I think we'll be calling Cord in the Cloud. From Criterion Networks. They have set up an environment that we can start handing accounts on. I've got to talk to someone about, I'm the guy that you go through to get an account, but we'll figure that out. So this is brings up a Cord environment that you can then play with, do development work with, and so on. Just one high-level observation, they have their own build environment, so this is not going to be something you can use to work on the build environment. But for service development, it's kind of, you can think of it as equivalent to Cord in a box in a way. In any case, we'll be handing out accounts to an SD cloud application. I'm on the home page. There's a set of sandboxes that have been defined. One of them is already set up for a deployment of Cord 2.0, which I'll go into in a second, but you can also launch new instances of this. And basically, you provide a name. You pick an OpenStack version. Right now, you only have one choice. You pick a Cord version. They have a 1.0, but I suggested they just go with 2.0. Cluster type, it can, I'm not quite sure where they're going to go with this, but whether you have high availability or not, the answer is not in what they're offering now. And the deployment type right now, the only thing is virtual, but they also have you can actually acquire hardware. And then you would go ahead and provision a cluster, and about 30 minutes later, you would have your own sandbox. And it would look something like this. There would be a virtual machine that would run some front ends, including an example subscriber client. There's an XOS VM. There's one for ONOS. There's one for OpenStack. And this particular one has 2 compute nodes in it. So you can see they've rearranged the deployment, but it does have all the moving parts in it. And if you were...
Are there switches there? I didn't see fabric. I'm just curious if I missed that.
I think not. No, there's no fabric per se. They've just plumbed everything, hardwired everything together.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, good question. So if I go back, I'm not going to create one right now, but if I go back and visit 2.0, I can learn about that particular deployment. You know, there's reachable IP addresses for the XOS machine, the ONOS machine, and so on. Drill down on details of what's running and how big the virtual machines are, and so on. What do you get if you hit the data path? Oh, this is showing how things are plumbed together. And I can't interpret this fully for you, but you can all get accounts and go poke around yourself. The other thing that you can do is you can get access. And so all those, from the cluster detail, you can find out where all the VMs are, and you can download a private key and go SSH into them, or you can directly come into the various portals. And so I'm now logged into the XOS Cord portal, and you've all seen this, so you can go on your merry way looking through everything that's in there. So again, that's a really quick introduction to it, just to make everyone aware that it's available. And I guess there's a status page that tells you how long the cluster's been up. but we have the ability now to sort of, equivalent to launching Cord in a box on Cloud Lab. This is a pre-canned deployment on SD Cloud. And, you can SSH into all of those virtual machines and presumably we probably need a better document different workflows that you could undertake. So that I guess the workflow needs to be spelled out a little bit more clearly, but that's what's available. And I believe this is ready to go live, although I will verify that before I start actually setting up accounts for people.
Do we have a similar option to deploy mcord or ecord?
Yeah, so they go through the process of the build processes through their own means. All right, as I recall, I know they don't use Ansible. I'm pretty sure they're using Puppet. So they have their own recipe for how they set up a configuration. So they would have to, it's not going to help you on anything coming out of master, for example. And so they've pre-baked the ability to deploy Cord 2.0. So they could do that first.
If it really does 30 minutes, I'm assuming it's probably using some images and laying down images directly for everything. And then just
that's exactly right. That's exactly right. So, but for anyone that wanted to work in 2.0 and work on a service of their own, that this ought to be an okay platform for that, or anyone that just wants to take it for a spin. So that should be helpful for people just getting started to sort of learn the way around. So if you'd like to give it a try, send me an email and I'll set up an account for you. And there wasn't anyone from Criterion Networks that could talk today. We can get them on a future call if we have other questions for them. Okay. Any other questions? All right. So I'm going to pass it to Sopan, hopefully. All right. Remind me how to do this. Sorry.
I've never done this before either with GoToMeeting, so it's going to be a learning curve for me as well.
Okay, so I can make you presenter.
Okay.
And now I think if you, on your basic console, yep, there you go. Take it away.
All right. All right, so I'm going to present some work I've been doing integrating Cord with Elasticstack, which is a log management solution. The overall goal of this effort is better log-based diagnostics. So you might ask, is that really a problem since you've got a whole bunch of log files, but they're stored on the file system and we can access them and inspect them manually at any time? The answer is, for now, it's a small problem. So for instance, as far as the installation of Cord goes, there's one log file that you can look at, but these things are increasing in complexity. Zach's in the process of parallelizing this installation, and presumably over the next few months, going forward, these will be distributed across the network, and there'll be a multitude of sources of logs from all over the place. And so we need a solution to manage this complexity. We break up the capabilities we need into 3 parts. There's finding a needle in the haystack. So say you've encountered a particular issue. Things are working in general, but there's something specific, a specific operation that you've invoked that didn't work out as you expected it to. And now you want to sift through, you want to wade through the vast amounts of logs you have to diagnose the problem, to find information not only pertaining to that particular event, but also information related to it. The second category of problems is getting a bird's eye view. So you're setting up Cord, it didn't work, it didn't come up, nothing's working. You want to get an overall overview before you can decide how you want to proceed solving the problem. When you combine these two things, you get, starting with a bird's eye view, you try and categorize your problem and then go into that category, find subcategories and drill down in that manner until you have a bunch of prospective needles that you can look for to actually determine the root cause of your problem, or just to get the information you need. That's what we call drill down. So I'm going to skip ahead to the demo. So we have log stack set up with XOS and Cord. It comes up when Cord is installed. Right now it only works with Cord in a box. I'm going to go through a few things. So let's see.
When you say only works with Cord in the box, when is Cord in a physical pod going to be supported?
That's it. So there are two parts to that question. There's the general part, which is how do we manage this? How do we scale it up? How do we implement things like failover? What the topology is, how it ties into the Cord setup. That was actually not a part of this effort. Figuring that out. The main part of this effort was figuring out the usability aspects, rewiring the synchronizer, and doing all the plumbing necessary in Cord to be able to turn the data we have into useful information and to be able to sift through it. In terms of when, so that's to talk about separately. Right now, it comes up as a separate VM alongside Cord Dev and Prod. I assume that a good first step would be to get it running on the devel box in the physical setup. But we can come back to that question afterwards, and I look forward to having that discussion with the team. So let's see, let me get out of right. So just the main advantage of this work is that all of the data we have in Logstack that we have in this framework is indexed and easy to search. So say you wanted to figure out what versions of Ansible you're using in the setup. So you run a query, package contains Ansible, and when you look into that, let's see, so actually maybe to take a step back, what you're looking at is Kibana, which is the visualization component of Logstack. It's the thing that lets you visualize your log data to query it. And on the left is a set of fields that you can query on the basis of and select, define a filter in terms of, and on the right is essentially log data with those queries and filters applied. And by default, you see everything, so you get swamped with information. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the package field, because that's one we're interested in. And we see we're using Ansible 2.2. I could also add, right, so there's a Cord specific tag called global tag. If I add that, we can see the machines on which that version of Ansible is installed. So that's one bit. You can also get logs by exploiting that tagging capability further. You can get logs by component. So I could say synchronizer name, onboarding, and okay, let me drop this. And so what we see here is logs from the onboarding synchronizer. Again, an excess of information. So we could just select the logging message. In which case, what we get is really a single go-to point for looking at the logs of the onboarding synchronizer. So it's as if you had SSH'd into the head node and entered into the Docker container with the onboarding synchronizer and actually printed the logs. You can query it pretty easily. So, for instance, if all you care about is to look for errors in the synchronizer logs, then you add a exception, and you see all the exceptions that showed up, and they're pretty printed and in a much more aesthetically pleasing and accessible format than they are in the text files. And the tagging capability applies to XOS objects as well. So you can say slice name equals my site public, for instance. And what you get is the set of log messages pertaining to that slice. So with messages with that slice associated with them. And perhaps the best illustration of how we're able to cut through a lot of context, we're able to produce a cross-section that cuts across various layers of context, is that say you've got Cord up and running, and you allocate a resource to, you allocate an instance in the context of a slice. You can actually look at the Ansible log messages in as much detail as you could get for you on the console with that slice in mind. So I could run a more specific query, like so there's a model name field. It's just showing one, but that's because of the data we're looking at. There's a PK, which is the key. So the filters are pretty detailed. You can get a particular XOS object, feed it in here, and what you get is the actual Ansible console, the Ansible logs for that message. So again, if we actually here, instead of filtering the data, we can actually go into one of these things, and what we see is all of the output of the Ansible scripts. I see there's actually password information here, something we have to do about. So yeah, so just to recap this step, what we've done is we've taken an XOS object, which is what the user sees and what you see in the GUI, and taken it and plumbed all the way down to platform level Ansible log messages, such as failure conditions and so on. And you could say something like, I want to filter. So this is trying to filter by the name of a controller, but I want to get all this text block is a bit unwieldy. It tries to autocomplete and doesn't let you type in what you want. So Ansible and say changed is false. And so that gives you the set of results for which of Ansible tasks that got executed and nothing changed. You could also set an error condition there. So this was an overview of the first capability I talked about, which is finding the needle in the haystack. The second capability of getting a bird's eye view is something that's incomplete and we're going to have to work on over time. It's also not that essential. The first capability is the main one. It's the more useful one. But the second the bird's eye view you get by tagging certain log messages with global context. So if you've got a component and you want to make a log message, a piece of information that you spew out accessible to an operator or somebody who is not familiar with your component, you can tag it with a global tag. Right now, there's only one tag, namely global. So I can look for that. I can say there's a Kibana query that says exists, meaning that field is set, exists global tag. And I can say starting finished. And I'm going to unclutter the data on the right. I'm going to say add message and also the name of the global tag. Okay. And so these are the stages of setting up Cord in a box. And so what I did was I modified the Cord in a box script so that every time a function runs, it sets the global tag to the value on the right and has a start and finish. So that means is that now, you know, if you were trying to figure out why your Cord in a box setup didn't come up or what went wrong, you could look at this log. It's a bit mixed up because there was debugging involved and restarts and so on. Usually it should be in the right order. If you identify a particular step, a tag, that didn't complete, that has a starting but not a finish, then you get the timestamps for those two. And now you can go into Kibana and you can actually set those timestamps. So you set an absolute time range that period. And then you can do things like search for Ansible scripts that failed within that period. Or if over time we were able to tag this information with more context-specific information coming out of modules, then we could do things like look for other global state that has starting but not finished. So that's what I meant by drill down, that you start with global state and then you figure out interesting components of that global state, and then you go down in detail until you can run the types of queries that I demoed a little while back.
Sapin, we need to wrap up in a minute here.
All right, good. Yeah, I'm on to my last slide, which is how do you use it? So from XOS, it's easy. You use the XOS logger with an extra field. So you say logger.info and then the message that you want to log along with meta information that you want indexed in the manner that I described in the extras field. XOS objects already have a toLogDict method that you can use to explode that XOS object into the type of index information we need. Logstash, it runs on the devel node. This is to hash out. So you can communicate with, if you're not implementing a synchronize, you've got your own component like in Mars or something, you want to send data. You can send data directly to Logstash if you're able to generate JSON. I wrote a script called Logstash tail because unfortunately there are no scripts or tools that parse things like Ansible and the Debian package parsing that I described. So you can use this script, and it parses common log formats that we use, mainly Ansible, and it also has Cord-specific patterns. The main pattern that we have right now is global tagging. So if you if you spew out a message in this format, where you have an imply sign, and then a global tag, and then a message, then that gets tagged, and you can search for that. That's it for the demo. I'll be happy to answer questions or discuss this further over Slack or in other meetings.
I have two comments. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
I would like to make two comments regarding the first part of the logging pipeline. So, of course, an elk stack such as that has been demonstrated here is sort of is focusing on the end side of the logging pipeline, namely the collected data and how to mine that data. We have been using the same stack in our production environments for a long time, and it works great. So I'm fully supportive of this effort. The comments I would like to make is about the pipeline and the beginning of the pipeline, namely the log source and the way that the logs get into Logstash or Elastic Stack, or basically to the Elk stack. Regarding the first one, obviously the mining the log is going to be as good as the log messages emitted by the applications are. If it's garbage, then you get garbage out. If it's high quality log, then of course you get very good results with mining the logs. What we found to be very important is to move away from human-oriented logs and focus on structured logging, which means basically you create log messages that are primarily meant for machines to parse and machines to filter and index. So if you remember the line that was shown a few minutes ago, where there was a message and there was a structured data, try to make the message to be as short as possible and move as much data into the indexable fields as you can. We have been using that approach, and it's amazing how much difference it makes when it comes to really digging into tough problems, even just implementing a quality dashboard. So structuring logging, I believe, for almost all languages that are being used in the Cord community, have structured logging supporting libraries that makes the whole thing very simple. The second part is the collection. I would suggest to you guys take a look at FluentD. It's one of the few open source frameworks that basically creates an entire pipeline that allows, in a distributed environment with multiple servers, to do a local collection from the local services, collect the logs, and then pipeline it into a centralized place where the Elk stack can pick it up. That's all.
All right, thanks for that. Yeah, so on the first part of your comments about the quality of log information depending on the information that components generate, that developers send. Yeah, it's true that people are going to have to adapt their logging to use this new facility and produce more structured data, less text. I think one advantage they have is because they use because XOS itself is sort of structured software, modularized. There's a lot of context that comes out of it. And so, for instance, even if within an Ansible playbook or an actual platform operation, you end up generating a simple string, you get a lot of structured data by default. So just by virtue of using XOS, you get things like the model name and the in which the operation is in the context of the object, the name of the component, and all that. So there's some default log information that gets extracted. About using FluentD, yeah, all right. So that's definitely to take into account and keep in mind when we figure out how to scale this up and actually make this production ready. And I hope to maybe have that conversation and talk about that when I come to Menlo Park next week.
Do we also need to start looking at request IDs or how to track a given request across multiple systems as part of this logging and using the tags for that?
Perhaps, David, the first question is that, is it the assumption, or is it just, I hope that the assumption is that the same Elk stack is going to collect information from basically from every application that's running on the platform, not just for XOS.
That would be my assumption, and then we just have to start dealing with the transaction or request IDs so that we can essentially track a given flow.
Yeah, I made that assumption as well.
Okay. So the problem that David brings up is also a common requirement to make the logs valuable, especially if it's a microservices environment where you have multiple systems being touched. And we can carry an offline conversation, like what are the best practices to create a unique tracking ID when a request is coming and how that should flow through the system So
Yeah,
that subsequent
So,
load messages are carrying the same
let
ID.
me jump in for a second. I think these are great topics. I don't know if, and I would like to continue it with offline or in Menlo Park discussions and a design document that people can comment on. I don't know, Sopin, if you already had a document, I can't remember.
I don't have a document for this. I don't have extensive experience with XStack, as far as using it and actually leveraging this type of information in a production environment. So I'm happy to get people's input. And like I said, I'm going to be in Menlo Park next week, so I'll come rap on people's doors and try extracting as much information, getting as much information and wisdom as I can out of it.
Okay, so now everyone's aware of what's going on here, and hopefully we'll get more feedback and more advice and involvement. Thanks, Sopin. Sorry to cut that short. I'm sure we could have a great discussion there, but let's do that offline. I'd like to get to the collaborator proposals. There was a little bit of urgency with one of them. So I don't have them in front of me, but they were from Sprint, DT, and Adara. Let's start with Sprint and DT, two operators. Let's see.
Me to share the screen for that one, or it's on the Cord Tst mailing list? People can pull it up. Is there a preference?
Yeah, let me. Well, let's just assume people can pull it up and just talk through it. So let's start with Sprint. I think DT we have more involvement and knowledge about. Sprint's a little bit of a newer one. Asim, I thought I saw you online. Can you speak to that?
I'm not in the room here, so
Yeah.
I can speak to. Oh, this is not working. It's there. Sorry. Okay, can you hear me, guys? I'm moving closer to the microphone. So this is Asim. Sprint is a carrier who is interested in working with us on the Cord project. They have been very active from the XC NFV side on 5G NFV pieces. They have a significant team within Sprint, about 4 to 5 people who are working on this for the last couple of years. They started out with ODL as the end controller, and are working with Intel and others on the high performance EPC. Bill and a couple of other engineers visited with Sprint when they are starting to explore, given the Intel connection with Cord and ONOS, they're starting to explore whether going to ONOS would fix some of the issues they are running into with performance and scalability on the ODL side. So, and we explored a little bit of the Cord architecture, the Cord kind of goals and drivers, and they were very excited about being part of that system. Their goal is to take this to production in the next 3 to 6 months, and because of their experience with ODL, we thought that they would be able to give a lot of valuable input into our roadmap, into the use case, and hence I encourage them to come in as a collaborator. Obviously, it's strategic to the Cord project, because now we would have all the top 3 tier 1 service providers, Verizon, AT&T, and Sprint, supporting the Cord vision. Because there was a very short time window, they wrote up something quickly, and that's what you see as the collaborator proposal. I think we can get them to contribute at a higher level. This doesn't have a lot of specifics, is what I understand, but they are willing to step up and give us periodic updates on their activities and give us inputs when required on what kind of how we are progressing on Cord. So,
can you say something a little bit more about the Intel high performance EPC? Is this Sprint's code? Is this related to what Intel's been doing?
Right. So this is Intel's code. Intel is open sourcing that and integrating that as part of their contribution into the MCORD project is the desired thing.
This is then what Sprint is leveraging.
Correct.
Oh,
correct.
Well, that's a great connection then.
Yes. Sprint is basically using this as their vehicle to go to this 5G evaluation, and they have shown it internally to all the execs at Sprint. They could not believe the performance they were getting with the virtual EPC running on x86 platform, and so this is a very, very hard project within.
This is all right. That's all. This sounds all great. Is there any TST broad discussion? But anyone? Yeah, go ahead, Saurabh.
Oh, this is a no-brainer. I mean, so I have no objections.
Ali, Andy, everyone else?
I think I already voted +1 for this.
Yeah, I think you did online. I agree. This is a no-brainer. Now that,
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, thanks for the background.
all right,
Okay, well, and then
DT. So I think maybe we can get the best update about DT from Ali.
Really?
Well, you're the one that went in and saved their bacon. So let's hear about that.
That was like 3 months ago. So what do you want me to give an update about?
well, they sent a proposal. I don't know if you've had a chance to review it.
I +1 did.
Okay.
But I mean, yeah.
Beyond that,
I mean, beyond that, I don't have much to comment. Like, wow, wonderful. Yeah, you want me to?
if
go
you
for
have
it.
the background,
Sure. All right. Let me pull up my notes. This is Asim again. I had a call with DT, Deutsche Telekom.
You have to call my
Okay, where we talked to their key contributors, Manuel and Robert. Robert is the head of the XS 4.0. This is R-Cord based architecture, where they are trying to go to field trials again in Q2 or Q3 timeframe. They are very excited. They've done a lot of work, is what we were told, and I think Ali has seen some of that in action about a couple of months ago, where now they are starting to and very willing to contribute back their virtual DPU pieces back into the Volta project. So their interest is in ONOS. ONOS?
Virtual DPUs into ONOS, which is.
Oh, okay. Is it right? Not into Volta? Okay, so I'm stand corrected. So into the ONOS project, but their vehicle is R-Cord, and hence I think they're interested in collaborating both on Cord platform as well as the ONOS side. So this specific one, obviously, we are voting for the Cord collaboration.
So, Ali, your point, I mean, there's something strange about it. Do we need to ask for verification or more?
No, it's just that like so the virtual DPU stuff is like the virtual OLC stuff, except for ADSL like G.fast equipment, and they implemented this into ONOS, which is fine to some extent. I think it extends now ONOS has to be aware of G.fast requirements and specifics.
And that's not ideal.
And that's not ideal. That's why we built. It's one of the reasons why we built Volta, to build this abstraction there, so that like everything looks like a switch to ONOS, and ONOS knows how to manage switches real well, and makes everything easier. So the idea would be maybe once we have a bit more detail of what they've done, maybe there's a good reason to put in ONOS. And also, when they started this work, Volta didn't exist.
Sure.
So maybe when I spoke to them last, they did say that we could consider moving things around.
So maybe we want to iterate with them on this?
I mean,
or?
yeah, I think we can take our time and see where these things go, and once we know exactly what the virtual DPU stuff really is, then we can make a call. Right? Because there may or may not be need to have an ONOS component to this work. I'm not entirely sure. I don't think so, but there may be.
I think that they were open to
they're
open to our suggestion and our guidance on this, and they also have at least 2 people, 1 full-time equivalent person working on this and committing to that in this collaboration agreement. Right?
So I have some questions about how they're using ONOS to do this DPU control. What this virtual, you said it's like the OLT, but what hardware are they using for G.fast that has OpenFlow support that they're directly controlling from ONUS?
I don't know what hardware it is. I don't think they would tell us or can tell us. I know of one G.fast equipment that we have that has OpenFlow support, but I don't know what they're using. They might be using some other vendors. I have no idea. There are several vendors that have G.fast equipment which has OpenFlow agents on it.
Did you say that we have one as well?
I have one, yes. It's in my office on the floor.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, I think it's useful that we get them in because even if we go down the Volta strategy with G.fast, you know, Volta, I mean, Tom Anschutz has mentioned it before that when you bring in G.fast, you get another tree hanging beyond the tree that you already have for the pawn. And that might mean some changes to the abstraction that Volta presents. So I think we can learn from what DT has done, going directly from ONUS instead of going through Volta, and maybe that will then make its way into Volta.
So yeah, when Ali described Volta to them, they were very excited about that project, and they thought that their words were, "This is exactly what we need as a carrier." And the second piece of information is they are also actively being helped by Redis, our partner, on some of the system integration pieces. Okay.
From my point of view, just the fact that they're doing what we can call an Cord demo puts them over the collaborator as an operator threshold. But second, that they seemed quite eager to align what they're doing with the way Cord and Bolt is going. So that actually, for me, is enough to say yes on the collaboration.
Yep, me too. Yes.
I agree.
I would agree process-wise. I don't think you have to have every technical detail sorted out in advance. I mean, if we want to work with them and they're willing to work with us, we can do that after approving them. So for next steps, it sounds like I'll approve this and somebody will take the lead on having a technical conversation with them.
Sounds good. So the last one is Endera. My reading of the proposal was that it was very, very broad, and it was hard to tell what they were actually proposing. And
number of things.
Does anyone know enough, have any additional detail beyond the proposal that they could speak to what they're really proposing to do?
I mean, I don't technically, but I have spoken to Lillian, the person who put the proposal together, and they're, just for background, a long-time ONUS collaborator, and I think they're just excited about Cord. I mean, I don't know, Bill, if you have more kind of insight into their goals, but I think they just want to get involved and kind of throwing some ideas out, not a very specific single vision.
Given how much they have in there, I think we might want to ask them to get on a TST call.
Talk through it.
I agree with that. I think it would be good to get them. I mean, I'm glad that they're eager and anxious to or excited about being involved, but it would be good to get them a little bit more focused.
Do you want me to ask them to join next week? Do we have space on the agenda?
Next week we would have space, so that would be fine.
Yeah, I'll reach out to them.
All right, that was easy for now. The one last issue that is on the agenda is what is our process for approving maintenance releases to 2.0? I don't know. I haven't heard what the specific issue is, but broadly, let me just throw out my opinion, which is these could be discussions that we could do on email. We wouldn't have to save them on a weekly basis, but since we're here and we have a few more minutes, let's hear what the issue is. Is this from Shrikant, maybe?
Hello, Larry, are you able to hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, the issue is related to two bug fixes that we recently made to tackle the intermittent issues that we are noticing in monitoring surveys. We felt that they are very much required for the stability of the monitoring service. And today in Cord 2.0, 2 out of 4 times when you onboard monitoring service, it might end up in a failure. And these 2 fixes are can address such type of intermittent failure of the service. So when I brought it up in yesterday's stand-up, seems like this is the first time we were doing this type of backporting a master fix into the released version. So we felt that it's better to bring up an TST to get a.
Sure, that makes sense. They aren't these are implementation bugs. They're not interface related.
Yes, they are implementation. I believe. I mean, one of them is what I fixed is an internal issue. Scott, if Scott is there, he can provide some information on his fix.
So just
okay,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, they're just gonna say that like when were these fixes put in?
Last Friday.
Oh well, okay. So so there, you can make a new release of Cord 2.0 just by giving in Jenkins. If you just say that the release version is 2.0.1, then and click proceed, it will make a new release. So that it's as easy as that.
So after cherry picking these 2 bug fixes, we need to.
Oh, so they're in master.
Yeah, they're in master right now.
Okay, well, yeah, cherry pick them back to Cord 2.0 if you want them to be in Cord 2.0, and then wait until a build happens. And once a build happens, you'll be asked, if the build is successful, you'll be asked whether, well, not you, only Larry, Andy, and I will be asked if we want to make a release.
And that'll create a tag in the repo manifest.
Say again, sorry?
And that'll create a new tag in the repo manifest.
Yeah.
Because right now I think it's set up so that the branch Cord-2.0 will remain constant even over a new release. And we're just tagging the manifest, right?
So what happens is, well, it's not really a tag in the manifest, it's more like a branch in the manifest, but same effect. So the point is, the Cord-2.0 branch keeps on marching forward with new bug fixes, and whenever we feel like it, we can make a release and give it the name 2.0.1 or whatever, and that's the process. So the Cord-2.0 is the support branch, and then the other branches that come off of that are the release branches. Make sense?
Yes.
So what about the process for testing these bug fixes? If they've been tested in master, can we just check that or cherry pick them to 2.0 and merge, or should we cherry pick them and then do end-to-end tests on 2.0? Or will this automatically be done by the infrastructure?
Well, so right now the automated build doesn't do much in the testing way. It just verifies that everything's deployed. Now that doesn't deploy Acord. So there's work to be done to be able to automatically deploy the fabric on our racks from the automated build, and that's something that someone needs to pick up and do. So I fortunately don't think I have the bandwidth to tackle that right now. And there's also problems in how do you reboot a switch and reinstall its image and stuff like that. But anyway, yeah, I mean, like I said before, like the automated build, the nightly build, needs to be as complete as possible going forward. That includes installing all the software and configuring all the hardware, but also running tests after. Right? So we're not there yet at all.
So for what we do have, I guess we test what we have. So the process of doing this is reasonably well defined. I thought the issue was, maybe I just completely misunderstood, is what's the threshold for the this qualifies as a bug fix. This certainly sounds like it does, as opposed to a feature, and we ought to save it for the next release.
But I think we had said that there were different releases of 2.0, right? Because with the eCord and mCord integration, are we doing a 2.1 or are we still doing a maintenance 2.0.1?
This sounds like a 2.0.1. Are you asking about at some point in the future when we do something that includes mCord?
API.
Well, then we'll,
3.0.
Yeah, you can't do API changes to 2.0.
But I think those are the thresholds we're talking about, right? With 2.0, no matter what, there will be no API changes because that'll be a 3.0 rev.
Yes.
And then there's 2.1 versus 2.0.1.
Yes.
And I think the small bug fixes, I think what we were trying to do was maintain 2.0 to be as stable as possible, which means whatever bug fixes we can, we do want pushback to 2.0, right? I think one thing that Scott had raised before, though, is there are some bug fixes that it would take more work to integrate back because it's as part of the XOS refactoring. And so those may be much more difficult unless they're critical bugs to integrate back.
yeah, that'd have to be an awful critical bug to try to retrofit those.
But I think in general the policy should be if they're easy enough, we should try to get them back onto 2.0 for stability, right?
Yes, yes. Yeah, I mean, we're going to have to cross the 2.1 mCord bridge when we get to it. I don't quite know how to judge that one yet, but this one seems like a clear cut. It's just a matter of can we adequately test it, or how sufficiently can we test it. So I didn't hear what the fix was, Scott. Was this a trivial fix or?
Yeah, it's a trivial fix. So I'm not worried about it.
Okay. All right.
Do we know what the fix was?
Yeah, I can tell you what the fix was. So the one I fixed was a race condition between model policies and the instance sync step. So it was sometimes we were trying to sync an instance before we had finished creating the networks for it, and therefore we did not get the interfaces coming up inside the instance.
And the other one?
The other fix is a monitoring service synchronizer related, where when we add a RabbitMQ user, it sometimes fails because of a virtual host missing. So now we added an explicit instruction in the synchronizer to create a virtual host before adding a RabbitMQ user. This is inside the monitoring service VM.
Okay. Both race conditions of sorts.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go ahead and do it 2.0.1. Let's see what testing that we can. I mean, if you guys are comfortable with the master testing, then we won't worry about it too much.
No. If you cherry pick to 2.0 and make a new build 2.0, then the testing has to happen on 2.0 and on.
No, I agree with that. I'm just saying that the fact that we don't have complete testing, let's not hold it up. Let's not hold it up on our testing being a little insufficient. Test it on 2.0 as thoroughly as we've been.
Why are we at 2.0.1? Because it's easy, or because we're trying to get this fixed out for general use?
It's because the Cord that's bundled up in 2.0 is broken, according to this.
So it's not broken all the time. It is an intermittent issue.
Well, that's broken.
It is a fix for Cord.
Yeah, the only thing I want to point out is just because we backport patches to the 2.0 branch doesn't mean we necessarily have to cut a 2.0.1 release. We're able to say, look, we're going to take a batch of patches, and at some point, we're going to create a structured release on that. If this is the time, great. We just have to select when we do that.
Yes,
Yeah,
agreed.
and I'm trying to understand the policy.
That's what we're doing, and I mean the policy is it's simple. It's like, are these bugs critical, and do they affect people's usage of the system? If the answer is yes, then you cut a bug. You cut a new release. Numbers are free. Right?
Exactly.
Like a 2.0.1 and 2.0.17 are the same shit. But the point is we have to decide as a kind of TST whether the bugs that are being addressed constitute a big enough step. And maybe this is big enough. I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying one way or the other. Yeah.
See, I would look at this and say, do we have any other bug fixes that we know that are coming down the pipe that are going to be ready in a week or so, or maybe two, and at that point we cut the release.
Yeah,
as
that's a good
determining
question.
factor of whether we cut the release or not. Because we don't want numbers are free, but we don't want to this week cut 2.0.1 and next week 2.0.2.
Do we?
We want some level of stability.
Do we have other bug fixes known in the pipeline? Great question.
There's some other things that I have fixed recently that haven't been pushed to 2.0, but I haven't pushed them because nobody has complained about those bugs. So,
well, let's get those included if they improve.
Yeah, let me go through them and sort out which ones are the trivial ones from which ones are refactoring involved.
So I think this is always a judgment call. So what I would propose as a process is that when you have bug fixes you believe are A, qualify as bug fixes and not features, B, there's someone that's would benefit from having it, raise it on the TST. We will do the call for other bug fixes at that point, and when we believe, I guess we can technically vote, but when we believe it's substantial enough, we'll declare it. So in this case, Scott, let's see whatever else you can add to it, and we'll do a last call to see if anyone else has any, and then we'll run it through tests.
And the process is for us to cherry pick all of this to 2.0, then pull a 2.0 build, end-to-end test it, and then call it good?
Yes.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. I think we can close this meeting. We have another meeting to go to.
Yep, got another meeting. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.